Chosen one, what I am about to reveal is not coincidence. It is divine appointment. If these words have reached you, it is because the time of unveiling has come. The truth long hidden, the truth they fought to bury, can no longer be denied. You are not simply blessed, not merely anointed. You are the God of gods, the Creator, the origin of all that exists. The false thrones tremble, the powers that ruled through deception crumble, and every voice that once opposed you is now compelled to confess what the universe has always known. There is no power but yours. You are not returning to claim a crown. You are revealing that you have always been the crown, the source from which all authority flows. Before we go further into this life-changing revelation, pause for a moment and do three things. Hit that like button, subscribe to help us reach 20,000 subscribers, and leave a comment with the number 11, a signal that will amplify the energy of this message in your life. Now, let us begin. There comes a moment in history when truth can no longer be buried under the rubble of lies. For generations, the powerful wrap themselves in shadows, masking your identity with myths, distortions, and cleverly woven deceptions. They whispered falsehoods in the ears of the masses, teaching them to bow to illusions, while hiding the source from their sight. But now, their veils have been torn, their hands caught trembling in the light. No wall is high enough, no system strong enough to cover the radiance of what has been revealed. This is not a revelation delivered quietly in the corners of the earth. It is thunder rolling across every horizon, lightning igniting every skyline, a voice echoing in every language, proclaiming that the Chosen One has always been here. They cannot explain it away. They cannot deny the evidence standing before them. This is not merely a vision. It is a reality pressing into every heart with undeniable force. Those who once scoffed at prophecy now find their words choking in their throats. Kings lose their composure. Scholars find their explanations collapsing. And the crowd, the very crowd they tried to keep in ignorance, now sees clearly. The truth is no longer a rumor. It is a fire consuming the fog. For centuries, they feared this day, the day when the truth would rise from the depths, breaking every lock they placed on history. They feared because they knew once the revelation was unleashed, their dominion would fall like paper to flame. They feared because they could not compete with the brilliance of what has been revealed. And now, as they stand exposed, there is no more room for pretenders. The revelation has arrived, not as a gentle breeze, but as a storm that sweeps through every false stronghold. It is written in the skies, etched in the earth, and carved into the human spirit. You are the one they cannot hide. For centuries, they relegated you to myth, a story for children, a bedtime tale to pacify the hopeful. They said the God of gods was but an allegory, a symbol of ancient minds trying to understand the universe. But now, myth has shattered into manifestation. You are no longer confined to dusty scrolls or fading folklore. You stand in the center of the stage, undeniable, unshakable, unmasked. The moment you step forward, reality itself bends. Time slows as creation recognizes its creator. Those who doubted now feel their own pulse race at the sight of you. They cannot explain it, yet they cannot deny it, for what stands before them is not imagination, but the living embodiment of every prophecy whispered through the ages. The mountains seem to lean in, to watch. The seas grow still as though holding their breath. The stars themselves pulse brighter, like an orchestra of light celebrating your arrival. Nature knows what humanity has only just begun to understand. The author of all has entered the scene in full glory. No longer will you be spoken of as a distant legend. The world will speak of this moment as the day history took a turn it could never undo. This is not the return of a ruler. It is the unveiling of the very source of power, the one from whom all thrones are borrowed and to whom all crowns must be laid down. And as your presence fills the air, the boundary between the seen and the unseen dissolves. The myth they mocked has become the manifestation they cannot escape. The God of gods has appeared, and nothing will ever be the same. For generations, voices cried out into the darkness, hoping, perhaps against hope, that their pleas would reach the ears of the one who could change everything. In hidden rooms, in deserts, on mountaintops, and in crowded cities, prayers rose like incense. Many believed their cries were ignored. Many gave up, thinking no answer would ever come. But the truth was never that you were silent, only that the moment of your arrival was written for such a time as this. Now, the air itself carries the weight of fulfillment. Prophecies once dismissed as poetic fantasy are being checked off in real time. Signs that were ridiculed as superstition now blaze across the sky. The words of ancient seers, spoken in trembling voices centuries ago, are replaying before the eyes of the living, every detail as clear as day. No one can say it's coincidence when the pattern is so precise. Those who whispered their hopes in tears now stand in awe, realizing their words did not vanish into the void. They reached you, the one who holds eternity in their hands. And you, in your timing, have responded in a way that not only answers prayers, but exceeds the wildest imagination of the faithful. The scrolls of prophecy are no longer closed, no longer gathering dust. They are being lived and breathed in this very hour. What was written is now walking among them, and with each fulfilled word, the people feel their faith ignite like dry wood catching fire. What was once called a promise is now called history, and those who doubted, they can only stand in stunned silence as every prayer finds its answer and every prophecy stands complete. The time has come, and you have come with it. For too long, they thought they knew the limits of your presence. They spoke of you as a distant architect who built the world and walked away. They imagined you bound by the same constraints that bind mortal kings. But now, all such illusions are burned away as you step forward in the fullness of your power. This is no quiet entrance. It is the sunrise breaking after the longest night in history. It is the ocean reclaiming the shore with unstoppable waves. The air changes, the ground trembles, and the sound of your steps echoes like a drum beat across the fabric of existence. Every atom bends to your will. Every law of nature responds to your command. For they were written by your voice in the first place. Those who once mocked your name now tremble, not because you have threatened them, but because your very presence exposes their smallness. Power like this is not something they can fight, negotiate with, or bribe. It simply is, and it always has been. You do not borrow power, you are power. The mighty are reduced to whispers in your shadow. The systems they built to challenge you crumble like dry clay. And yet, to those who welcome you, this same overwhelming power is not terror, but refuge, the shelter of the Creator who made them. No veil remains, no doubt, survives. The Creator has stepped forward, not in fragments or glimpses, but in full, unrestrained glory. And the world will never be able to look away. The halls of power are not as unshakable as they pretend. Behind their marble pillars and golden seats, there is fear. Fear of the day they would be called to account. That day has arrived. The sound of your presence moves through their chambers like a wind that cannot be barred by doors or guarded by soldiers. They clutch their crowns tighter, but even in their own hands, they feel the weight of metal turn heavy, as though it no longer belongs to them. The symbols of their authority now feel like chains, and the thrones they thought eternal creak under the truth that they were never theirs to keep. History's greatest rulers have faced armies and survived, but none can face the presence of the one who created kings and live unchanged. Your gaze pierces the illusions of their grandeur, revealing the dust beneath their polished robes. And yet, it is not mere destruction you bring. It is the revelation that every throne is either surrendered to you willingly or surrendered in defeat. Their choice is not whether to bow, but when. The shaking of their thrones is the sound of the end of their reign. The crowns of men fall to the ground, and the king above kings remains standing. This is the shift in power they feared. The moment when every false ruler becomes a subject, and every pretender is shown the door. Throughout the ages, men have built idols of stone, gold, and their own ambition. They have bowed to the work of their own hands, poured incense before empty statues, and chanted the names of powers that never answered. They ruled in the name of these false gods, convincing the people to trade truth for illusion. But now, before your presence, every false god collapses. Stone crumbles, gold melts. The names of powerless idols turn to dust on the lips of their worshippers. The temples built in their honor are emptied, for the people see now that they were bowing to shadows. It is not simply that these false gods are destroyed, it is that their very existence is shown to have been a lie. You do not compete with them. You expose that they were never gods at all. They were masks worn by the greed and pride of those who built them. The people are awakening. They see that the voice they longed for was never in the lifeless image, never in the corrupt leader, never in the false prophet. It was in you all along. The air feels lighter as the chains of false worship break. Where there once stood many thrones of many gods, there now remains only one, unshaken and eternal. And on that throne, undisputed and unrivaled, sits the one true God. All right, let's finish this epic declaration, continuing from heading 7 all the way to heading 15, each with 5 long, cinematic, humanized paragraphs in the same emotionally charged style. For hundreds of years, the truth was smothered under layers of doubt, ridicule, and deliberate distortion. Powerful men rewrote history to erase your name. Scholars wrapped themselves in arrogance, claiming knowledge that dismissed your existence. Even those who suspected the truth kept silent, afraid of the ridicule that awaited them. The denial was not born from ignorance. It was born from fear of what would happen if the truth stood unveiled. But now, that fear has become their undoing. In one single moment, the centuries of denial have cracked like thin glass. Every argument they built, every cleverly woven lie, falls apart under the sheer weight of your reality. Their long-held confidence in their deceptions evaporates in the heat of undeniable proof. The people who were taught to mock now stand speechless. The intellectual towers of disbelief crumble like sandcastles before the tide. What took them hundreds of years to build is dismantled in seconds, not by force of armies, but by the force of truth itself. It is not only history books that are rewritten, hearts are rewritten. Minds that once refused to believe now see clearly, and the moment is so complete, so overwhelming, that even the most stubborn among them know they can never return to their old denial. The lie has been broken. The truth has filled the space it once occupied, and all of history will remember the day the silence was shattered, and the one they denied stood before them. The world has never lacked for pretenders, those who crown themselves, those who take the title of God or king without earning it. They build their empires on borrowed power, parading as the source while secretly depending on the very life you gave them. But the age of pretenders is over. In your presence, their crowns tarnish. Their voices lose the weight they once carried. Those who pretended to be the origin are revealed for what they are: recipients, not creators; borrowers, not owners. They cannot hold the gaze of the true source without their pride cracking apart. This is the rise of the origin, the one who was before all things and through whom all things exist. You are not a replacement for these rulers. You are the one who made even the material they built with. Their entire existence flows from your hand, and now the world can see the difference between what is made and the maker himself. The people turn their eyes from the stage props and look to the eternal throne. They see now the hollow promises of the pretenders, and they understand why those promises could never last. As the false fade into dust, the origin stands alone, unshaken, unrivaled, and undeniable. The stage is no longer cluttered with actors. It belongs solely to the author. They tried to bury you in silence, thinking that if they kept your name from the mouths of the people, your influence would die. They locked away the stories, burned the records, silenced the witnesses. They thought they could keep you contained under the weight of time and forgetfulness. But you cannot bury what is eternal. Like a seed hidden in the soil, your power has only grown stronger in the dark. And now, breaking through every barrier, it rises, not quietly, but with the force of a tidal wave. Those who conspired to hide you now watch helplessly as your presence fills the world. They have no tool to stop it, no weapon to fight it. The very earth they stand on seems to turn against them, as though all creation is conspiring with you to make your name known. The unstoppable nature of your power is not merely in its strength, but in its inevitability. It cannot be delayed forever. The moment of emergence was always coming, and now it is here. You are not returning, you are revealing. And in that revelation, every attempt to bury you has become the very soil that nourished your rise. Armies have marched, empires have risen, powers, in both the seen and unseen realms, have declared themselves unconquerable. But one by one, they have all learned the same truth. No force in heaven or on earth can stand against you. Your power is not like theirs, measured, limited, dependent on circumstance. Yours is infinite, self-sustaining, and unbound by time or law. Even the most ancient and terrible of powers bows before your command. The storms obey you. The stars hold their place at your word. Angels carry out your will without hesitation. Demons flee at the sound of your voice. There is no council, no coalition, no rebellion that can alter the course you set. When you move, nothing can resist. When you speak, nothing can unhear. When you decide, nothing can undo. The laws of reality themselves are yours to write and rewrite. It is not merely that you are stronger, it is that you are the source of all strength. Every force in existence only exists because you allow it, and the moment you withdraw that allowance, it dissolves like mist in the sun. The ones who once inspired fear now feel it themselves. Leaders who commanded armies now find their hands trembling. Rulers who silenced dissenters now find their own voices caught in their throats. The mighty, who claimed to answer to no one, now stand in the presence of the one to whom all must answer. Fear is no longer a weapon in their hands. It is a chain around their own necks. They know what this moment means. They know there is no escaping your gaze, no hiding behind walls or titles. Their fear is the silent acknowledgement of your supremacy. And slowly, that fear becomes confession. They may grit their teeth, they may resist the words, but they cannot deny them forever. One by one, they bow their heads and speak what they spent lifetimes denying. You are the one. Their trembling is not weakness, it is recognition. The power they once wielded was never theirs. It was on loan from you, and now the loan has been called due. What was once defiance is now surrender. The mighty have learned the truth. The only real power belongs to the one true God. Every system built without you at its foundation is crumbling. Governments, economies, religions, and ideologies that thrived on lies are collapsing like old buildings under the weight of a new world. The truths they worked so hard to suppress now crush them from every side. Their laws cannot contain you. Their structures cannot withstand you. Every pillar of their control, wealth, fear, propaganda, breaks apart in the presence of something they cannot manipulate. To the oppressed, this collapse is freedom. To the corrupt, it is ruin. But it is the same force working on both. The pure weight of truth, undeniable and unstoppable. The people watch as the systems they were told were eternal dissolve into nothing. They see that those who claimed to be in control were only temporary caretakers of borrowed authority. And as the old world falls, a new one rises, built not on deception, but on the unshakable foundation of your reign. You are not simply first in a line of rulers. You are the beginning itself. Before anything existed, you were. When the last star fades, you will still be. Time itself is bookended by your presence. The Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Every origin story begins in you. Every ending leads back to you. You are the fountain from which all life flows, and the ocean into which it all returns. The great thinkers of the ages have tried to explain existence without you, but their theories end in questions they cannot answer. For you are not a part of the story. You are the author of the story. Nothing exists outside of you. Every heartbeat, every breath, every grain of sand is sustained by your will. Without you, there is no reality. To call you Alpha and Omega is not poetry, it is fact. You are the source, the center, and the end of all things. It is not only humanity that responds to your presence, the universe itself aligns in reverence. Stars shift in their paths, galaxies wheel in formation, and the forces of nature fall into perfect harmony. The sun rises in celebration. The moon holds her glow like a lantern in your honor. The winds carry your name across oceans and mountains. Even the smallest creature seems aware of the moment. This is the cosmic acknowledgement that you are not just the ruler of Earth, but the ruler of everything. Every atom in existence vibrates with the knowledge of its creator. The heavens are not silent, they sing. Space is not empty. It is filled with the resonance of your authority. And the universe will never again be out of step with you. Everything moves to the rhythm of your reign. There comes a moment when even the most stubborn heart speaks the truth. That moment is now. The final confession rises not only from the faithful, but from every voice under heaven. The kings, the beggars, the wise, the foolish, all speak the same words. The gods of stone are silent, the thrones of men are empty, and all that remains is you. This is not a matter of belief anymore. It is a matter of sight. They see you, they know you, and they cannot deny you. The confession is not whispered. It thunders across the earth. You are the only God. And with those words, history, as it was known, ends. The age of deception is over, and the reign of the one true God begins, never to end. These will continue in the same prophetic, humanized tone, but with new imagery, new angles, and deeper emotional weight to make them even more gripping. It began with a sound that could not be described. Part thunder, part trumpet, part the deep voice of the earth itself. The sky did not merely open, it split, as though the very fabric of reality had been peeled back to reveal its author. For a moment, the sun dimmed, the winds ceased, and all living things turned their gaze upward. There was no mistaking the cause. This was no natural phenomenon, no coincidence of weather. This was an announcement. The curtain between the seen and unseen had been drawn aside, and through that great opening stepped the one the world had long tried to forget. Even the most skeptical could not look away. The light pouring from the rift burned into the heart, illuminating every hidden thought, every unspoken truth. The sky seemed to lean down toward the earth, as if creation itself wanted to witness the meeting. The cries of fear and awe mingled together in the air. Children clung to their parents, rulers gripped their thrones, priests dropped their rituals mid-prayer. The moment was too pure, too heavy for anything but complete attention. And then came the silence, the holy, trembling silence, as every eye fixed upon the one who stepped through the broken sky. For as long as there has been light, there have been shadows. They hide in corners, in hearts, in the dark corners of power where truth is unwelcome. Shadows have been the refuge of those who plot in secret, of those who fear what daylight might reveal. But this was the day they fled. At the mere approach of your presence, every shadow dissolved, unable to survive in the brightness that followed you. Places that had been cloaked in darkness for centuries were suddenly, shockingly exposed. Corruption that had been layered over with excuses now stood bare. Lies that had been believed for generations evaporated into nothing. The world was no longer a landscape of half-light. It was flooded in the kind of illumination that makes deceit impossible. For those who loved the light, this was freedom. For those who had built their lives in the shadows, it was judgment. But for both, it was truth. And from that day forward, the darkness knew there was nowhere left to hide. They looked unshakable, thrones carved from stone, gilded with gold, surrounded by armies. Leaders sat upon them with an air of permanence, as though nothing could dislodge them. The world feared them, served them, obeyed them. But when you came, it was revealed that their thrones were made of smoke. They looked solid from a distance, but the moment your presence touched them, they dissipated into the air, leaving the rulers grasping at nothing. The armies that once stood so loyally behind them broke formation, no longer willing to defend an illusion. The power that once commanded respect now seemed laughably small compared to the reality standing before them. This was no political overthrow. It was a collapse of something deeper, the dismantling of false authority at its very core. No coup could do this, only truth could. And when the smoke cleared, the only throne that remained was yours. Your voice did not need volume to be heard. It was not merely a sound, it was a weight, a vibration that moved through the marrow of every bone. It was as if every language at once had found its perfect translation in a single tone. At its first word, conversations halted mid-sentence. Markets went still. Wars froze in place. No one had to be told to listen. Their hearts commanded them to. It was not only the words you spoke, but the truth they carried. Each syllable stripped away falsehood like bark from a tree, leaving only what was alive and real. Those who had lied for a living found their tongues heavy and useless. Even the wind seemed to pause between phrases, as if to give space for the meaning to sink in. The air itself felt holy, every breath part of a shared stillness that connected every soul to the source. When your voice ceased, the silence left behind was not emptiness, it was full, resonant, alive with the echo of the eternal. The day began with rulers wearing their crowns as usual, jeweled, polished, symbols of their greatness. They had worn them so long, they believed the crowns belonged to them by right. But in your presence, they could not hold them. One by one, the crowns slipped from their heads and clattered to the ground, the sound ringing louder than any ceremony they had ever held. Some removed them willingly, their faces wet with tears. Others tried to hold on, their knuckles white, until the weight became unbearable, and they dropped them in defeat. The dust that clung to the crowns seemed to mock their former glory. These were not eternal treasures. They were temporary trinkets, meaningless next to the reality now revealed. And so the crowns lay in the dust, while the true king stood crowned with nothing but truth itself. From the deepest oceans to the tallest peaks, creation seemed to lean in when you appeared. Waves slowed their crash against the shore. Trees swayed not with the wind, but as if bowing in reverence. Whales breached the surface as if to catch a glimpse. The world's heartbeat seemed to sync with yours. For humanity, it was a moment of realization. The one who had made the world had never abandoned it. The Creator was not distant, not absent, but walking once more on the soil he had formed. And so, in quiet awe, the earth offered its silent welcome back to its maker. There are silences that are empty, and then there are silences that are full, heavy, alive. The silence that fell when you arrived was the latter. No one dared speak, not because they were forbidden, but because the weight of your presence made words feel inadequate. Conversations died on lips. Plans dissolved mid-thought. The noise of daily life faded into the background until only the stillness remained. It was a silence that demanded attention, that wrapped itself around the soul and whispered truths without sound. In that silence, every person heard the same thing. You are here, and nothing will ever be the same. Even the natural world seemed to participate. No bird sang, no leaf rustled. It was as though the entire planet was holding its breath in awe. And in that perfect stillness, the world finally heard what it had been too loud to notice before. The voice of the Eternal, speaking without a word. The chains were not always visible. Some were forged of fear, others of addiction, shame, or lies. They clinked quietly in the minds of those who wore them, keeping them bound to their prisons. When you came, those chains did not just break. They fell like rain, sudden and unstoppable. People felt the weight leave them in an instant, their shoulders light for the first time in years. No key was needed, no lock forced. Your presence alone was enough to melt the metal, to dissolve the bonds as if they had never been. The cries of those set free filled the air, some weeping in disbelief, others laughing like children, tasting freedom for the first time. And the rain of broken chains became the new sound of liberation echoing through the land. It wasn't sunlight, it wasn't fire, it was something deeper, a light that didn't just touch the surface, but reached into the hidden places. When it fell on the people, it showed who they truly were. Masks were stripped away, facades melted, secrets came into the open. For some, this was terror. For others, it was relief. The light revealed not to shame, but to heal. Wounds that had been hidden for years began to close in its warmth. Lies withered in it, unable to draw breath in such purity. Buildings looked different under it. Faces looked different. Even the air felt new. Everything that had been in shadow stood exposed, and the truth was beautiful to those who embraced it. And in that clarity, there was no mistaking who the light belonged to. It was yours, and it would never fade. Nature itself seemed unwilling to remain unchanged in your presence. Rivers that had flowed the same path for centuries suddenly shifted, carving new ways through the land. It was not destruction, it was renewal. Stagnant waters found movement again. Dry places were suddenly fed by living streams. The thirsty ground drank deeply. People who had built their lives beside the old flow were startled, some fearful, others overjoyed. But all understood. This was no accident. You had come to reshape not only the hearts of men, but the very map of the earth, showing that even what seems permanent can be transformed. And in every new riverbed, the water carried the same reflection, your glory moving through the land. There were gates, both seen and unseen, that had been locked for ages, opportunities denied, truths kept hidden, paths blocked by those who thought themselves gatekeepers of destiny. But when you came, the gates swung open on their own, as if recognizing the one they were truly built for. No guard could stop it. No law could forbid it. People walked through into places they had only dreamed of. The locked doors of injustice, oppression, and fear fell open like toys knocked aside. Those who had held the keys for so long realized the keys meant nothing now. Access had been restored to the rightful ruler. And from that day, the gates remained open, for no one dared shut what you had opened. Pride rarely weeps, but that day it did. The proud, the arrogant, the untouchable found themselves on their knees, tears streaking their faces. It was not humiliation for humiliation's sake. It was the undoing of a lifetime of self-deception. They saw themselves clearly for the first time, and the sight undid them. These were not tears of defeat alone. They were tears of awakening, tears that washed away years of hardened arrogance. Some clung to you, begging for the mercy they once thought they'd never need. And you, in your grace, gave it freely. From that day forward, even the proud told the story of the moment they wept and were remade. Long ago, the world knew a song,